Tucker said, what? Jocko getting emotional, man. Gets me every time. Welcome, friends. Welcome to PSR episode number 1, podcast summary report, video number 1 for you all. Today, we're going to reviewing 4 videos. First one is going to be Jordan B Peterson with Vivek, episode 440. Second one is going to be Jerry Experience with Michelle Dowd, episode 2137. Third episode, Diary of a CEO, Jocko. And finally, another JRE episode, 2138 with Tucker Carlson. Strap on, because this is going to be a good one. All right, we'll start with the easy one. Easy. All right, it's Jordan B Peterson, 440 with Vivek. This one was kind of interesting. I think this is the third time that Jordan Peterson has had Vivek. And they've almost already started developing a bit of a friendship because they like working together. They do a good job. They talked about Vivek's experience in the trails, in the candidacy and everything. But now since he stopped, and it's now doing more of a endorsement and other type of events, Jordan Peterson checks in on Vivek and asks him about his experience and everything. So what I took about this episode is first, the questions were around Jordan B. Peterson asking Vivek, how was his experience? How did it go? So one of the things that I found interesting was his learning experience from all his days out there in the cities and in the towns and learning how to interact and how to connect with people. And just having that one-on-one conversation with a lot of folks out there after his different types of events. But what I really liked is kind of he expressed it in three points, maybe another one, a fourth point, but mainly was number one, how impactful the marketing is. It's just like they call it a political industrial complex because just the sheer money that has to go into marketing as a candidate is just incredible. And he said that at the beginning he couldn't get enough eyeballs to get to know him, so that's why he started to do non-traditional media, which is podcast, and he wanted everyone to see him. Podcast, left wing, right wing, everybody. So he started to do that, and he started to gain a lot of popularity. His polls went up, his results and everything. So the next thing that occurred from that is, well, he thought that the legacy media, the mainstream media, CNN, MSNBC, all those different types of channels, that it wasn't important. But then he quickly realized how it was. It was actually very important right now because there's two divisions right now. Let's call it the baby boomers and everybody else. The majority of the baby boomers still listen to legacy media, to cable TV, to networks, news channels, cable, and all that information. And then you have the other half, which are now getting their news and information from non-traditional media like podcast or YouTube blog, etc. And what he realized, quickly realized that when he was gaining that popularity, the mainstream media said, we're not letting you get away from that one. So he started getting invited to more of these types of events, but with a little bit of a trap, with having those gotcha moments in the back pocket. He talks about an experience where he got invited to a interview, and then CNN told him exactly, oh, these are the conversations, and this is the points that we're going to talk about. As soon as he joined that discussion, then they completely flipped the script on him, and he had to be on the defensive. Well, that's the viral conversation with him and Don Lemon. He saw it coming, he was prepared, and he had that discussion. And what resulted from this was the eventual firing of Don Lemon. But so that was an important thing, I think, for him to realize that even though you might think that the legacy media is losing power, it's not losing that much power at all. And certain things happen in the background. And one of those things that happened in the background was the Atlantic sneaking reporters. So he dives into this, and I can put a timestamp of the video. But one of the things is that he had a reporter following him throughout the trail and was trying to create a relationship, a friendship with Vivek. But after, when he mentioned a couple of little things in confidence, then this reporter broke the news out of Vivek and his conspiracy theories against 9/11. And that just made the rounds and everything online, on all the news, all the legacy media news channels and everything. And that just really hit Vivek on as a surprise. But he understood that, you know what, I have to be really careful. Now, they conclude, it was actually an hour and 37-minute episode, so it wasn't that long, but it's still, they covered a lot because this is their third episodes together. And I like that Jordan Peterson said, well, I want to check back in with you in another 4 months to see how you're doing. But the final questions that they were asking is, all right, I see that this chapter for you running for for the president of the United States has ended for now, but what's next? What's next for Vivek? So he talked about, will you go into VP or you serve in another function, or tell us. Well, he said he kept his options open, but the main thing of his message was, I want to serve the country the best way I can. It could either be as a VP, or it could either be somewhere in the cabinet, or I don't know. But I'm endorsing Donald Trump. So he said this in the podcast on the last 10, 15 minutes of the podcast, because he truly loves this country, and I want to place myself there so he can ask me for any type of advice, or we need to win this together. Da 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 da. So he talked about all this information, and if one of the things that I wanted to bring to you all is, if you wanted to listen to this episode, what section would you want to attend, or what section would you want to jump into? I really found it interesting how that distinction between legacy media and new media, and how even though they're grasping with their fingernails not to be forgotten, they're still the main part of our society right now. They still can play dirty tricks and change the perception from a candidate, a person. You can call it canceling, you can call it affecting their reputation. But it was really interesting how he got to see it, because one of the lessons that he learned, he was, let's say, disappointed that he wanted to really spread the message, his message. And when they started all these attacks, all these smears, etc., everybody started to see him as a fighter, especially after the second debate, as I'm gonna fight, and he almost called himself an a-hole, and that's how everybody was getting to know him, because he came on guns blazing. But he realized that he couldn't change that aspect afterwards until he was no longer running for the president of the United States. So when he was continuing in the trail, but not as a candidate, and having those conversations and talking to others, then he could see that the citizens were actually having a good conversation. You know what? It's not what I thought you were, or you're not the person I thought you were. And he quickly realized that because he was having to fight and defend his character, his personality, etc., he almost became like this fighter, and it was just quite challenging for him. But that's a good video. I liked it, and I would recommend it to you, but only in small chunks if you want to watch that. All right, so now we're going to transition to the GRE episode 2137, which is Michelle Dowd. Now on this one, I want to cover it a little quicker, all right? Because this is a personal experience. Michelle is talking about how she survived an apocalyptic cult called the Fields. So she was born in the Fields. Her grandfather was the creator of the Fields, this cult. And this cult started in 1931 approximately, if I'm not mistaken. And it was created by a group of men, and these men weren't allowed to marry women, and they weren't allowed to procreate or anything for 35 years, from 1931 to 1966. After that, that's when they started to bring a woman here, a woman there, and that's where children like Michelle were born into this cult. It is quite impressive, her story. It actually ties in a lot of different things. It ties in religion. It ties in the psychology behind the creators of a cult. It ties in how and Joe constantly says this in many times during the podcast, is we can all easily fall into these cults if we truly believe something. And it's interesting just to see how this resilient young woman at the age of 17 was kicked out of this cult, but had to learn how to live in the outside world, in the real world, at age 17 by herself, just with a little bit of support from people on the outside, from other field cult survivors. And one of the things is, I got the timestamp linked on the video, is where the reason why she got kicked out was she was talking to a fellow field survivor, a boy that had left the cult, and they went to see her first movie, which is The Color of Purple. And she said that how it was almost a religious experience for her. She even cried because of the music that she heard. It's quite a interesting podcast, to be honest. I listened it from start to finish. You can see how you have those types of conflicts between Joe, even just comparing cults and religions. He almost says, "Oh well, you got the biggest cult in the world," which is he doesn't say it directly, but almost Christianity. But it's just very interesting how they have all these types of conversations, everything, what she learns, how it affected her trust of everyone outside in the real world, and just that conversation. It's one to listen to if you like those type of conversations, right? All the of cults and just psychology of humans, and it's just really interesting to see how resilient this young lady was, and now at her age is now a mother and is trying to really make changes in society, and just with her book Forager. So I recommend that. Shout out to her. But it's a good episode. I would leave, let's say, I will recommend you every single one of them, but this one, in the 4 videos that I'm recommending, I would put it in the lower bottom, let's say, because if you like this type of conversation, go click on it. But if you like other things, this maybe not for you, but I liked it. It was 2 hours 53 minutes, and it was very insightful. One of the things that I'll close it up with is one of the things that I liked, even though in her struggles, in her time during this in the cult, she was taught how to survive. So I can almost imagine this young girl, when she was less than 17 years old, could be dropped in the middle of a forest. All right, you go and survive on your own. You got to think about shelter. You got to think about food. You got to think about how to stay safe. All these things. So she knew how to navigate with the stars and everything. She explains on that. I have the timestamp for that. But it's just quite an interesting story, and very, very admirable. So Michelle, keep doing what you're doing, and just keep going. All right, that's 2 down. Let's go to The Diary of a CEO with Jocko Willink. Now, what can I say about Jocko? This is an hour and 50-minute podcast. I've heard Jocko before. I heard him with Joe Rogan about maybe a year or so ago. I don't have exactly the time. But this is one of those episodes where I almost want everybody to click on it and listen to it. I know it's an hour and 15 minutes, but you can take your time and just grab it in small chunks. But just the nuggets of information that Jocko has, it's quite incredible. I'll start quickly because I promised a 5-minute recap, and that's what I'm going to do. But this is a man that I admire. This is a man that has discipline above all other things, because discipline creates freedom. He has it in the podcast. He believes that extreme ownership, which is the name of his book, will give you what you need to be able to survive this world. And a lot of things, that's when we as humans, we as men sometimes especially, we forget about that, and we just push it out on excuses, right? So Jocko wanted to be a British commander at the age of 13, and as he growing up, he had those figurines. As he was growing up, but the age of 18, he realized, wow, there is something similar to a commander here in the United States Army or military forces, and that was the SEALs in the Navy side, which stands for Seal, Air, and Land. That's an acronym, SEALs. And he went at it. He joined the SEALs at age of 19, and his story is history starts, right? So he was deployed many times. He led a large group of his fellow soldiers. He talks about the sorrow of loss. Talks about this how it's just man, Jocko getting emotional, man, gets me every time because he almost seems like the man's man. But you know what? I'm glad the message that he was saying, because he was saying, especially for men, that showing your emotion is not a bad thing. Being controlled by your emotions, that's the bad thing. So he said, don't be afraid of being able to show your emotions, but always have them in check. Always be able to take that next step. Don't let those emotions make you make incorrect decisions. So that's a lot of the things that he was talking about. And the biggest message that I can talk about is discipline. Discipline equals freedom. If you don't work out or eat healthy, you're going to be a slave to disease. If you don't save money or think about your financial future, you're going to be slave to your finances or to debt. If you don't manage your time, you're going to be the slave to have no time, and you're going to lose on those critical moments. If you do not discipline yourself, you will end up like a slave. That's what I got about that. So it starts now. It starts now, and he's talking about at the beginning is if you're a fat person or a flat slob in a couch eating a Dorito, spit that Dorito out. Spit it out. So resilience is just quite a great podcast, but I'll end it with here. Main points. He talks about the discipline, right? I have that timestamp. No comparison to ownership, being able to understand when you have to take ownership of either the good things and the good times and the bad times. And then finally, just being able to take care of your body, your temple, either by exercise, by a system of repetitiveness. He goes to sleep and tries to wake up every night at the same time. He trains jiu-jitsu. He works every day to keep his mind active. And he just wants you to become a balanced person, a balanced human being. If sometimes you're a little off balance in work and life, be able to bring that together with your personal time with your family. If sometimes your family's taking too much time and you might have troubles at work, be able to balance those things. When you are a balanced person, a balanced man or a balanced woman, you'll be able to make better decisions. You'll be able to be stable, centered, and you'll be okay. That's what he said. That's his message. He wants his message sometimes resonate with men mostly. So he says, be a good man, be a good human, and be balanced. But I believe this message is for everyone. So Jocko, you're one of my favorite people in the world. I started jiu-jitsu because of you. I wake up at 4:30 in the morning to hit the gym because of you. So I listened to Jocko over a year ago, and I'm starting to get into his podcast. So I'll start. But there's many things I can say about the Jocko Willink Diary of CEO. I recommend it to you. All right, last one. It is episode GRE 2138 with Tucker Carlson. Oh my goodness. What can I say about this one, my friends? Tucker said, what? This is an episode that it had everything. Like, I feel that Tucker Carlson almost is gunslinging. It's like he doesn't care anymore. He is talking about UAPs, UFOs, homelessness in California, like Gavin Newsom is this and that, He is talking about they had a small section, like 20-minute section of when he was a Grateful Dead head, and he went to 50 shows when he was young, and then he loved music. He loved to jam into acoustic music, comedy, all that stuff. But overall, if you don't have 3 hours and 7 minutes, because that's as long as this podcast has, I'll recommend you to break it up into small sections. The first 45 minutes talks about UFOs, UAVs, or UAPs, right? You can do that chunk, first 45 minutes. The last, let's say, hour and 30 minutes, the last 90 minutes, man, Tucker Carlson goes off the reservoir, off the deep, off the whatever you want to say. He talks about the conversation with Alex Jones, with Joe, that was a revolutionary act. He talks about 9/11. He talks about how you can't even talk about the damages the vaccine can have on you because you'll be considered Bobby Kennedy you'll be considered an anti-vaxxer. At 2 minutes and 16 seconds, he talks about 2017 and the vampires elites and his crystal ball, how his crystal ball is now very clouded. 2 hours and 26, his self-awareness of you could be considered not being in the right side if you're talking about the trans topic, which it's really crazy. But how everything right now in our society is, you have the truth, and then you have forces that are trying to affect this truth. So it's quite interesting because you could see him, he's not holding back anymore. He talked about at 2 hours and 37 minutes how the 9/11, again, he revisits this topic, but about Tower 7 and how the negative reaction you can get by questioning it, by having discussions around, did it fall naturally, or was it a time explosion? It is just quite crazy. I was having OS moments a lot, and it was just at 2 hours and 37 starts getting good because he talks about how the government spied on him. I have all the timestamps, the good timestamps right below this video, but he just talks about that he doesn't have any answers, and then he says he brought it to the members of Congress, and they were saying, "So, what are you gonna do?" He was like, "Nothing." And he was all worked up about it. And then he talks about Richard Nixon and the newspaper, and how what we're seeing right now really relates to that, because you're having these organizations, these societies, these institutions trying to bring down certain individuals, the military-industrial complex. I can just keep going and going. But then at the very end, which I believe is part of the most interesting part, is just how Joe and Tucker got into the conversation of the assassination of Kennedy, and why Trump didn't release those documents. I got the timestamp right there. You can actually jump into that conversation and you can see it, and how he believes Mike Pompeo is just let's call it not a good American, and how he got threatened by his lawyer just by releasing this information. You could see almost like the anger coming out of Tucker, but he's having fun. If I can summarize this episode, Tucker is having fun and is not beholden to anyone. The chains are gone, the shackles are gone, and he is just going into everybody that invites him, everybody that wants to have a conversation with him, and he's not holding back. So out of the 4 episodes, if I were to recommend you just one, listen from start to finish, I'm sorry, but it's going to have to be the longest one. Tucker Carlson, episode 2138 with Joe Rogan, 3 hours and 7 minutes. You can skip certain sections, but man, was it an episode full of gem. All right, my friends. So that's the recap. We're 4 episodes. They're going to be in the description. I hope you liked them. I hope you had fun. Please tell me in the comments which other episodes you would like to hear. I already have my episode number 2 structured, so hope you can catch that one as well. Thank you so much, and hope this brought some joy into your day, because now you know exactly what to focus on your next favorite podcast episode. All right, my friends, have a good one and take care.